the DREAM Act and the difference between the DREAM Act and the executive order that the President recently did. So I'm just going to take a few minutes because I know Mr. Biggs has a folder about that thick on his subject, and candidly, he's quite boring, and so I want to give him plenty of time to drone on. Anyway, I appreciate, this is a great turnout. I appreciate this new district. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be fabulous. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the details, but there has to be a little bit. The DREAM Act actually started, it was presented in 2001 by Durbin and Hatch. And it had some limited provisions in it. Basically, it said if they're good moral character, if they graduate from U.S. high schools, if they arrived in the United States as minors, and if they lived in the country continuously for 5 years, then they would be qualified to participate in the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act, by the way, anybody know what DREAM, the acronym is, DREAM, what it stands for? I'd be amazed if anybody does. Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors. Okay? That's what the acronym is. So they had this, it failed, and since then we've had multiple iterations. Mr. Biggs is yawning back there. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. Since then we've had multiple iterations in 2009, in 2010, in 2011. All of those we had additional versions of the DREAM Act. It was changed a little bit, and now it requires things like they haven't committed any felonies, or they're not likely to become a public charge, or they haven't committed fraud, etc. Here's the interesting thing. There were some conditions that were put on. Instead of being 35, it lowered the age to 29. If you were 29 or younger, you qualified. But this is the part that kind of stood out at me as I looked at this a little closer. It says, still has the good moral character requirement, but guess who decides that? Department of Homeland Security. Anybody know who runs Department of Homeland Security? Yeah. I negotiated with her for a couple of years when I was majority leader, and I can tell you, I don't think she'd know good moral character for bitter on the nose. But
we don't have alien problems, so why do we need that?
Yeah, thank you for the hecklers. Anyway, in 2012, Marco Rubio has a version, our own Marco Rubio, but anyway, that's really the background. On June 15th, 2012, the President announced that his administration would stop deporting. Now, this is the significant distinction in his mind, because just 9 months ago, he said that he did not have the authority to make that law. It had to go through Congress. There's a separation of powers, and he couldn't do it by executive order. So that was just 9 months ago, and you can find that on YouTube. I just watched it again before I came here, and yet, in his mind, the distinction is he's not creating a law, he's simply prioritizing the enforcement of the law. So that's what he's trying to do. So he's saying, basically, we are not going to deport anybody who is a minor, who's been here for 5 years, who's of good moral character, who's gone to school. And that's his mindset. So it is effectively the DREAM Act light. That's what he has done. It has not done, he did not create amnesty in that sense, and he did not give a path to citizenship. And it's only valid for 2 years, so he would have to redo it, or Mitt Romney would have to redo it. There are arguments for and against. If you're interested in those, anybody interested in arguments for or against? Yes? All right. Let me find those. I can give you some off the top of my head, but probably not all of them. The arguments for, this is a congressman that made these arguments. It would make the U.S. more competitive by tapping into the potential of illegals. It would not create amnesty because there's this rigorous process for them to get benefits, which actually is an absolute lie, and I'll talk about kind of in closing the path to citizenship. It would not encourage more students to immigrate because it only applies to illegals who are already in the country, and it would create a waiting period before the DREAM Act applicants could sponsor green card applications for relatives. Now remember that, because that's an important piece. And it would provide an expanded pool of military recruits. Now those against it say it encourages and rewards illegal immigration, imports poverty and cheap labor, is a military recruitment tool, economic and social burden, subsidies, welfare, schools, etc. It's unfair to American-born and legal immigrant parents. It also punishes legal immigrants who must pay full tuition at state universities, and it would result in massive fraud, much like 1986. It will shield gang members from deportation, and it will encourage additional illegal immigration. Now, here's the reason why. For someone to get a qualified green card, all they have to do is to hit those certain things. They can't be a criminal. They have to be under 30 years of age. They have to have been here 5 years. But then they can get a qualified green card, and the way they can convert that to a non-conditional green card is simply going to school for 2 years or serving in the military for 2 years. If they do that, then they get a non-conditional green card, and they can sponsor family members to come in and get a green card. So it is an open door policy that effectively says we put no limits, any real limits, on people coming in now legally by converting from illegal to legal in that very short period of time with those minimal conditions. So that's what the DREAM Act does. The executive order does not go quite that far, but certainly that is what he's pushing for. That's what we see with all of the DREAM Act different iterations. So with that, can they ask questions?
Please, surprisingly, you have some time left. And we don't want to give it all to Senator
I told you up front I was going to give it to the snoozer back there. Okay, I have 20 more minutes. Thank you. The gentleman in the back.
Yeah, my question is that aren't we putting all these students in a legal quagmire in the sense that they're still technically breaking the law? Now they're going to tell the government where they are, and then, you know, if another president comes in and rescinds the order, we know where they are. I mean, I'm against this act as much as anybody else, but it seems like to me that this is basically like, show us where you are so we can arrest you.
Okay, well, you bring up an interesting point. Let me tell you that that's one of the things the Heritage Foundation talks about, some of those things. There is really no requirement that they have any evidence or proof that they meet these conditions. As soon as they walk in and say, look, I was here 30 years ago at the age of 15, there's no proof they have to give, that automatically freezes them from deportation. It doesn't matter if they put on there that they're illegal. They cannot be used against them in the deportation process. So the answer is, you would think so, but no, because of the way this is drafted.
You compare and contrast for me the difference between granting amnesties and the logistics of non-enforcement of the law? If we're not going to deport, how is that any different?
I'm exhausted just from hearing that question.
Doesn't seem there's any difference.
Well, the difference is the legality of it. When you're talking about simply we're not enforcing the law, and especially since it's a 2-year executive order, it would have to be issued once again by somebody in 2 years. So you effectively are ignoring the law. In this case, the president believes he's just prioritizing his authority to enforce the law. But you are effectively ignoring the law, which is not the same as amnesty, because amnesty is a legal identification of someone's status.
Granted, but the logistics is the same. They're not being deported, and they're still allowed to stay.
Correct, but the legal status is not. So let's say that Mitt Romney gets elected, and in 2 years he does not issue an additional executive order, or he's sworn in January and he repeals that. There is no amnesty now that exists. The protection and the policies have been taken away. That's the difference. So it is a very, very important distinction. Yes?
I spent 16 to 18 years of my life with a green card, and while I had a green card, I was not allowed to get any of my family members a green card into this country. Why is it that these people can come here illegally and have a green card, and in 2 years they can get their family members in on a green card?
Because the president doesn't respect the Constitution, nor does he uphold the Constitution. That's the answer. So,
wow.
Did you get that green card legally? That's what I want to know.
No, I'm a citizen now, or I wouldn't be here.
I'd still be.
Good point.
Okay, I have 1 minute. 1 minute. Yes.
So that goes to my next question. What is the impact of the actual naturalization process? They don't have to go through what you went through at all?
They don't.
No, and in fact, what it does is they can count the time that they went to school against the 5 years it takes for them to now become naturalized. So it's exactly right. It's concurrent time served. That's spoken like a woman who spent time in prison. Yeah, Or the Air Force, yes. So yes, but, so they actually, through this process, they're frozen from deportation. They could go to school for the 2 years. That counts against their time they have to wait to come in, which is the 5 years. And they leapfrog the people who are doing this legally. So it is unbelievable. It is a horrible system that violates every premise of society and the Constitution and fairness that we uphold. So with that, my time is done. She has the hook out. Thank you. I've had a lovely time. You're a great audience. And I look forward to hearing from Mr. Gibbs.